What do you expect, NCG? I know when they played did you cast the finals of the cup they played?
I did not.
You did not? Okay, well, I'm not going to throw you under the bus then, but it was a pretty fun series where they played. HeRoMaRinE especially brought out like a marine drop opener, and I really feel like that was the one thing Reynor struggled with the most. Something that offset him very early in the game was something he didn't really have a great answer to. And that momentum was enough for HeRoMaRinE to kind of take games. And they played a couple kind of the longer games. I heard a lot of hype about Game 5. I didn't cast it like initially, and I cast it like a couple of days later for YouTube, and it was everyone was very hyped about Game 5, was like really epic. And when I went through Game 5, to me it wasn't very epic. It was very much so Reynor just controlled a long game, but HeRoMaRinE never really had many chances to get out on the map. So I feel like that's my narrative for the series almost. If HeRoMaRinE can get ahead early, momentum is his best friend. If he can take a stand, his stand has to be taken early in the game. If it goes longer and longer, that's where I think Reynor is just going to control. It's very, I guess, similar to how the Bunny series went for Reynor a little bit earlier on today.
It's unfortunate that sometimes the crowd reaction to a long game is that it's hype, but it's actually just kind of long. And not really that much back and forth. So you're like, yeah, awesome, a great TVC, show me it. And then you're casting it and you're like, oh yeah, this is super great, guys.
It's just one-sided, right? And it's like, it's just long. Like, one guy's surviving, which is like, yeah, that's cool, but like they're not fighting back, right? So it's kind of just like that death animation for 15 minutes. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, the overall series was very fun. So I don't know, maybe I misread what people were saying. Maybe they were talking about the series as well. I don't want to just throw Twitch chat under the bus, you know?
I don't want to throw this in, like, conglomerate of people. Vague body of people.
I don't want to take the entirety of Twitch chat based on one thing I read from one guy and blame the entirety of chat, right?
We're so nice, Forty. Oh my gosh. I read one person in Twitch chat and was like, all of Twitch chat said that. You're all on my list. All thousands of you. And now it's I'm glad that there is a good best of 5 TVZ, but that's kind of what I was expecting as well. Something early on happened. And then momentum was kept by HeRoMaRinE, who, I mean, is very well known for being a safe, kind of predictable player, but really, when you really start to see him a lot, it's actually not true. It is still where he looks the most impressive, is like his the oppressive nature of some of his like TVPs, for instance, where it's just like, wow, this Protoss didn't have a single chance. His macro was just that good. But actually, when we watch like his TVZs, he's just actually as fast as the other guys that we usually compliment for being fast. Clem, fast. HeRoMaRinE, macro, and thus kind of slower. That's actually not really true. HeRoMaRinE is just as fast, and I do believe he's even credited some of his like better successes of the last year with him improving his speed and precision. So yeah, momentum is absolutely critical. We're going to start things off in this game 1 with a 3CC build that Reynor is going to scout, but can't do very much about.
You know, you mentioned HeRoMaRiNE's speed, and I know it's a different matchup, but the perfect example of that lately is just being TVP. Like, his TVP, he is so good at being everywhere on the map, right? He is, like, left, he's right, he's dropping, he's then bringing an army back around to flank and, like, make it a whole thing. And that sort of movement can be extremely successful in TVZ, because that's exactly what Bunny did to win against Reynor in the earlier series, where, he's on the left, he's on the right, he's moving one army to join with the other one. The drop that was harassing is now part of the major force to overwhelm a position. That's the sort of stuff that HeRoMaRiNE, I feel like, has gotten really good at over, especially like the last half a year or so. It wasn't so much the case in the first half of 2020, where he was just kind of showing up with big armies and just beating people down and just winning. People kind of figured that out, right? And he had, like, I feel like around the DreamHack SC2 Masters fall, he struggled a little bit more because people figured that out. And he had to change up his playstyle a bit, and he did. He got faster. He played a more aggressive game. He played a more active game. And I feel like that really transitioned into helping him in other matchups as well. So, yeah, I'm really cool to see if he does bring that. Reynor's already playing a very different style, by the way, to what he played earlier. Melee upgrades, we didn't see that a single time earlier in terms of quick early upgrades. It was always that lair early in a safer setup. So maybe even just feeling more confident against HeRoMaRiNE, not being aggressive super early in the game.
He did seem to want to not have to worry about those cloaked banshees that Bunny did 2 out of 3 games, which, to his credit, they didn't worry him. They didn't do anything, but the rest of the games were a little lopsided. In this game, I believe he did see the starport with the tech lab, but specifically saw that it wasn't researching, so probably figured that it was a safety banshee. Could have been a raven, I suppose. Some Terrans do mix it in occasionally every, couple months it comes back, but safety Banshee would make sense. And that's what it is. It just is something that if Roaches suddenly appeared, it would make his 3cc build a little bit safer. If it was a true, like, Ling Roach Ravager all-in, well, it could still be a bit questionable. But since it's not, they both are macroing. Reynor with the faster upgrade build. And we're going to talk about, how this leads into HeRoMaRiNE's first push. On this map, we saw Bunny play super macro, really fast third, really fast fourth. HeRoMaRiNE not going to be playing that. I do think he's getting prepared to send out his units very shortly.
Aliens the Banshee doing a good job of slowing the creep wherever possible, right? And that's one of the big things that Reynor really capitalized on earlier when he played Death Aura against Bunny. Obviously was allowed to play a long game. HeRoMaRiNE doesn't want to let it get out of control. He wants to make sure he keeps that in check, keeps that under control as best he can. And we really are approaching the moment where we're going to see exactly what HeRoMaRiNE wants to do, right? Where is he going to add on extra racks or does he add on the extra base? And in this case, he's going to add on the extra racks. He's going to 8 racks it. And I really feel like now is the sort of scenario where I'm not sure about the Spire so much, because Reynor is going to be up against a huge wave of Marine tank. And if you're building mutas as the Marine tank's really starting to strike, it can be hard to see the justification for the mutas, right? It can be hard to see the positives of those mutas when you're having to use them defensively. And unless HeRoMaRiNE leaves his tanks, without Marine support, it's very hard to use those mutas very well offensively there, or defensively, sorry.
Absolutely. It can be difficult to fit in, and then when they are fit in, 800 to 8 mutas, it's not even that impressive. It doesn't even take out a tank that quickly. So as Reynor gets the full scout and sees that it is actually completely different from his previous Death Aura game against Bunny, he should be prepping a little more with that in mind. He did see that all 8 barracks are done, and he still has a changeling, in fact, keeping eyes on the reinforcements, so seeing if his run-bys could work out well or not. Right now, the answer is no, but Reynor still has the run-by set up for potential. I guess once he sees those Marines in the main move out, he might do it. Those changelings being actually potentially a big deal. The ones in the main. Actually, that's exactly what Reynor is looking for. A big supply depot wall, though, is going to actually force us to be less of a run by into the economy and more about just taking care of the reinforcements.
Yeah, he's actually going to grab a tank here, and now he's just going to leap on the units that are still to the bottom right, which is actually going to work pretty well here for Reynor. He trades out for a lot of these Marines, and yeah, it costs him a bit of Ling Bane, but I'd say that's an efficient set of trades. He has Lings left over, which is always a good sign. And while he can't really do much on the mineral line, it still really does just show he slows this down a lot. Reynor, with money in the bank to spend, honestly, one thing that has me concerned, but he might be able to take a fight where he is 2-2 against the 1-1, and a fight like that can obviously be devastating. So we'll see if he can take advantage of those upgrades. They'll be done in the next 20 seconds or so. It might just come down to kind of giving this base up for now and just playing the right side of the map instead.
As soon as Reynor figured out what build it was, I feel like his plan was adjusted very well. Set up that run by, was able to get full information thanks to a couple of changelings, and then now he's just used that information to be like, okay, I can give up that base. If he gets a little too aggressive, I'll take advantage of the creep. If not, then no big deal. Actually, he is going to go for the full surround, so no longer a run by or taking care of reinforcements. Actually just looking to clean this up entirely, which he absolutely will. There's no way that HeRoMaRiNE can really take a better fight with that. And he is forced to evacuate with a couple of units left over. A double drop, though, finding the reinforcing drones. And then the hatchery as well, and might get a bit more because the Lings respond pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He's not going to get too much more.
That fight really was just capitalizing on just being up in upgrades, right? And it really did go well for Reynor for that exact reason. And imagine Reynor hadn't just lost them 11 drones, right? Then he's like 20 plus workers ahead. He's already remaxed, and now he makes 17 mutas, by the way. After dealing with the first wave of this, he says, right, opportunity is there for me to go. He maybe needs to slow down some of the Ling Bane aggression because A, he's building into those mutas, and secondly, just the fact that those upgrades are now finished from HeRoMaRiNE. But he should be able to take a larger fight here in the near future with the mutas out. I feel like this should be engageable for him, and he is going to start jumping on this right away. Marines going to have to fall back. He's going to leave the tanks in the front, which honestly don't get that many shots off before they're taken down. Loads up into the medevacs, but now the mutas show up, and so HeRoMaRiNE isn't actually safe to do this, but the mutas stop chasing. This was a prime opportunity. There's no way these medevacs were going to be able to unload with Ling Bane underneath. Maybe now they kind of stopped themselves for a second, so maybe there's still a chance they get away. Boosts again, and we'll get back to the main army. HeRoMaRiNE just escaping trouble there. Both players making a little mistake to make that a little bit more exciting than it should have been, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess so. But it does even out. The mutas are unfortunately going to go over a couple of Marines, so loses 2 right off the bat, but he has so many. He has such a big bank, and he has consistent mining. It's not the best since his 5th was delayed and his 4th got killed, but he is on 5, going up to 6 bases again very soon here on 80 workers, and still has a pretty large army. Their armies are even as HeRoMaRinE has taken a couple of bad fights, is a little down below that max supply. And of course, because he committed to the 8 racks for so long, doesn't really have a lot of factory production. He's going to try to improve that in a little bit here, but he has once again pushed out into the middle of the map, pretty much off of creep. But once again, Reynor going in for a surround. Not many tanks going to be able to help out here, so I guess you try and evacuate to the right side, but that doesn't work. Bailing's colliding with almost every single Marine. Plenty left over from Reynor to continue the chase, and with the mutas actually out in here, they can even try chasing down these medevacs once again, but HeRoMaRinE not willing to give up the middle. Nope, yep, definitely gonna have to give up the middle, man. He's gonna try to evacuate to play out this game, but it is going to be difficult.
Yeah, that was a choice of do you want to run into the Baitlands on the left side or the right side of your army. There was nowhere good for HeRoMaRinE to run to, and that was the beauty of Reynor's setup, right? It was just set up so that HeRoMaRinE had to pick a bad fight, or there was no way to turn that fight into a good one. If you do just try and lift and leave, the mutas are there, and that's the difference from earlier in the game, and Reynor just kind of crushes through that one. And I actually think it could have been even easier than that. Like I say, if those mutas had just chased the medevacs in the previous fight, the game maybe ends just right then and there as well. Instead, I mean, it takes him one more engagement, it still makes it work. He just made the right decisions. It's like you said, the moment he realized what was up, he completely adjusted his build, right? All of a sudden, he was setting up the run by, he was not making the mutas right away, he really just prioritized making purely Ling Bane, which ran him into a little bit of lava issue, and hence the banked up money, right? Because you're expecting to spend all of that money on expensive mutas, which take up less lava. Instead, you're building purely Ling Bane, and you don't have the extra hatchery you might make instead. But because it was still just an adjustment to what HeRoMaRinE was doing, it still worked out. And that's going to leave HeRoMaRinE down a game, and Reynor up one. We get Romanticide for our second map CG, which has been one a lot of Terran players have been picking, actually. Well, even in the map pool, I should say. But this was HeRoMaRinE's map pick, and out of the 3. And yeah, I don't know what you feel about Romanticide playing out versus TVZ. I feel like it's very easily a map that can get out of control in the Zerg's favor. But at the same time, I can understand why the Terrans like it. The rocks that sometimes get left up, they can take advantage of, and it just gives you that very safe 4 base to work forward from too.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen a lot of games on this map go into some pretty late game scenarios, even more than other maps. I've been seeing the very, very late game, like ghosts included type stuff. And that's just the setup that it has. It's a large map as far as left to right goes, that sometimes leaves like run by opportunities open, but Terrans, once they figured out that would be the case, they've done a great job building supply depot walls and having army left at home, and then just are willing to expand and push with their expansion, usually up like the right side, for instance, if HeRoMaRinE's on the bottom right. But it's a really beautiful map, both in terms of I guess the visuals as well as the TVZs we get on it, so I am pretty hyped for this one. HeRoMaRinE tried an 8 racks, didn't work. That happens, especially when it's so darn well scouted. And I think we're going to be seeing a more macro 4 base type setup from HeRoMaRinE in this game. In the top left of Romanticide on his last life in the tournament, he is the blue Terran, HeRoMaRinE.
Bottom right-hand side, our red Zerg player from Clash, it is Reynor. It really was just... I feel like this is just HeRoMaRinE playing what we expected him to play. It wasn't a surprise to us that he goes 8 racks. But it's also not a surprise to Reynor. He knows what he wants to scout for, and as soon as he sees it, like you say, it's just he knows what to adjust to. And it does feel like HeRoMaRinE maybe leans on this 8 rack still very heavily compared to a lot of other Terrans that have moved on into just playing kind of 4 racks and more kind of like full-on macro setups.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up. The things, or more important things are happening, but that earlier on the broadcast, I kind of mentioned, like, it does feel like TVZ is just moving more towards 4 command centers.
Yep.
Definitely less on the 8 racks. I think those are like my exact words. So when HeRoMaRinE does it, though, it's not really a surprise. When any Terran does it like once, I'm not surprised, but I'm also not surprised that it was handled so well. If the Zerg player is kind of like, they're a bit wishy-washy, they don't know exactly what's going on, they completely misread it, so don't even realize it's an 8 racks, then that's usually when we see it work. I feel like that's when I've interviewed Cyril, and he was like, oh yeah, I just didn't scout it. It's like, okay, well that happens. But if it's scouted, and especially if you can get changelings on top of their army positioning, I mean, you see why it can be a build that's fading out. The Zergs are getting so good at knowing exactly what to do against it.
It's like the 2-1-1, right? It's like the 2-1-1, nothing got patched about the 2-1-1. Just Zergs figured out the exact response you want against it. And that kind of nullified. And it's a bit different because like a 2-1-1's an opener versus the 8-Rax being like a build/timing, right? But the 2-1-1 faded out, but it's never been like buffed again, and we started to see it once more because Zergs forgot a little bit what to look for. They weren't checking for it every game. And when they did check for it and see it, they didn't exactly respond perfectly anymore because it had been such a long time since 2-1-1 was a big build. And I imagine that's going to be the same for 8-Rax. Like every now and again, it's going to make that appearance, and so you'll be like, oh, 8-Rax, he's going for it, right? But it is that scenario where right now Zergs are just very much on top of this was a big thing in 2020. This was a build they used all the time. We had to know how to defend this, otherwise we just weren't winning a single ZVT.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking of. Is also that's what happened in the 2-1-1, and that's why like beyond bringing back like literally the 2-base 2-1-1, but then mixing it up with like Marine opener drops and then swapping on to Hellions actually, and kind of like the deceiving, the deception 2-1-1s is why I think is still kind of making those work occasionally. Plus, it's just beyond in his controls, legendary. But anyways, speaking, I guess, of a couple more barracks. We do have HeRoMaRinE adding on third CC and then right into a second barracks. So no starport. Some of the greediest stuff that you can do, like last game safety Banshee, realize you didn't need it. Not going to bother trying to even go for it at all this time around. Just all on the barracks production. So like a 3CC 2-1-1.
Yeah, good time to talk about 2-1-1 because that's, like you said, kind of what we're getting here. It's the 3C, what we call kind of a 3CC variant, right? Where he's going to go starport. You've got 3 Marines producing at a time, and I'd be kind of surprised if this wasn't 2 medevacs into, Marine drop across the map. So something that gives you map control early, allows you to push across. But Reynor, perfectly timed scout, and he's going to get in to see everything he needs to.
That's awfully nice. So, I mean, it's a similar setup dealing with the 2-1-1. It hits like 30 seconds later or something like that. But it is kind of the idea of you get 20 lings? I guess the Hellions might change it up a little bit, and then a decent number of queens. And if you can track the medevacs, then that's what you need. For the second push, the second drop, or whatever they decide to do, maybe that's when you need banelings, but you don't actually need it for the first portion of the defense. +1 Carapace, very fast, is a very popular reaction against this build, 2-base version or 3-base version, and that's what Reynor has done here. And now he's going to start working on these rocks, which I guess that is a bit of a concern. The faster they're dropping, the faster they can start controlling those rocks for potential follow-up. Ew, HeRoMaRinE maybe getting some pure build here. Very fast second factory.
Gonna be, I mean, I don't even know what I want to say about it first. I'm like, we could be seeing some Widow Mines. Is there any possibility there's actually builds into mech? Probably not. Probably just drilling claws and mines. But like, the possibilities are not quite endless, but there is a few different options here. Especially, I wonder if HeRoMaRiNE's like, man, I just can't win in like a normal game or whatever. Then I need to make some kind of switch ups. I need to make some crazy things happen, and that really does open the door to some different possibilities. See engineering base. This is absolutely just going to be for some Widow Mines. As we see our Lings counterattacking already. There's a couple of Hellions here, but he's going to get a wrap around on those Hellions. Marine showing up too, though. Reynor defends on the bottom right. On the top left here, HeRoMaRinE defends quite nicely. And both players just going to minimize any damage from being taken.
Not bad. There was a time where Kira did this and he was very defensive while building up the Widow Mines and doing drops, almost to a point of like, you could argue turtling, because he was only dropping with Widow Mines and nothing else. And then that kind of came and went, and we went to a couple of builds where you did the drilling claws very quickly, you did the Widow Mine drops. So you were also doing, actual pushes, or at least pseudo pushes, cleaning up creep spread, scaring the Zerg player. I don't know which one HeRoMaRinE is going to be more focused on. So 2 Marine drops, and then medevacs later on, burrowing those drilling claws, Widow Mines. I keep expecting the medevacs to start, and I'm like, they aren't, but yeah. He is definitely looking towards the Widow Mines.
Yep. I mean, not a bad idea. Reynor didn't like the idea of Widow Mines when we, like I say, talked to him a little bit pre-game. Not a fan of them right now, but there's our medevacs, so drops will start to happen all over the place. Reynor might look a bit odd, just that melee upgrade coming through, but that's just repercussions of starting an early single Evo chamber for power base, which is an often time used choice against the Ling heavy opening, or the Marine heavy opening, so not too surprising. Kind of shocked that he didn't go for a second Evo, I guess, and just start +2 and +1 at the same time, but that's not the end of the world. I'm sure he'll add a second Evo chamber onto lineup 2-2, and it's still going to be pretty much in line with the Terran. Is a lot of Banes morphing. A few Lings moving across. Going to see there's actually not that many units here at home, so if you can get a bust through that natural, it can be very effective. HeRoMaRiNE's not really using his units on that bottom side. The Wooden Mine drops aren't connecting just yet, so yeah, here we go. Marines are going to stim in, so they will find the opportunity to deal some damage. And now it's even more important that Reynor has a successful time across the map.
Oh, there's only 2 Widow Mines, and they're not burrowed, but Drilling Claws grows it quick. Last minute split doesn't really help too much. Lots of units going down. Second Widow Mine not nearly as good. This one is going to be split better against. And we got ourselves a little bit of a base trade going on here, but one where the Terran's production might be camped, and we know that means for Terran. It means not a very good game for them. HeRoMaRiNE's got a drop in the natural and a Widow Mine drop in the main. He won't be doing nearly as much damage as Reynor has the ability to, and he knows it. GG, Reynor